Another Tricer podcast. Today I am joined by Shane Smith. Shane is not a famous YouTuber or a famous Instagram guy. Shane is just like salt of the earth. He's got an excavation company, runs tractors, runs some cattle, got some horses, and he hunts Sonora every year. And Shane messaged me on Instagram and he's like, hey, check out this buck that I shot off of your tripod. And it was a freak buck. And I said, I want to hear about that buck because it was a Coues deer that he shot in Sonora. And I love Coues deer and I love Sonora. And welcome to the podcast, Shane.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me. It's an honor.
So I feel like most dudes in the world are like you, just out there hunting every year, working hard. And honestly, a lot of the guys more like you are probably killing the bigger bucks. You just don't hear about it because you're not out there, pounding your chest. So tell me about you. Tell me about Shane.
I'm just a normal guy, man. Husband, dad, brother. I own an excavation company. I work for myself, and I started doing that to try to hunt more. It ever tells you when you work for yourself, you end up working more than hunting, I think. But yeah, just a normal guy. Love chasing elk and mule deer, and kind of got the Coues bug, and it's been downhill ever since.
Yeah, man. I tell people all the time that if I had to pick one, it would be Coues. It would be Coues for sure. Like I'm putting in my draws for, and I don't even want to say the state. I'm putting my draws in for a state right now. It's not Arizona, and you'll be able to figure this out. And if you put two and two together. But my first draw is going to be for Coues deer, not mule deer in that state, because I'd rather draw a Coues tag than a mule deer tag. So I want to try and hunt mule deer or Coues deer in Arizona. In New Mexico and in Mexico. Yeah. By this time the podcast comes out, the draw will be over. So too late. You guys can't steal my Coues deer tag out of New Mexico. So the draw is on the 20th. This thing's going to come out in the middle of April. Yeah. I love those little boogers, man. And now you do excavation, we got the horses, but you also guide a little bit in Arizona too. Do you guide in Colorado as well, or?
Yeah, I've done some guiding in Colorado. Going to do some more this year. It's hard trying to sneak in your own hunts and guide as well. It's love-hate kind of deal. But yeah, I've guided a little bit in Arizona last year. We're going to go down this year as well. And then move into Mexico, and think I'm going to take a couple of my own hunters down to Mexico and see if we can't dig up some big bucks, and then come back for the springtime, and hopefully the snow's gone and start digging in the dirt again.
What are you guiding in Arizona?
Elk.
Who are you guiding with?
Gunnar Goodman. He's with Triple G Outfitters.
Triple G, I've heard of them.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Are they northern Arizona? 9 and 10?
No, he does mostly 23.
23. Okay, that's a hard tag to draw right there.
Yeah.
Big bulls.
We were on some big bulls last year.
Big bulls at 23.
Missed a shot on a bull that it was a giant. Hopefully he still lived and we can go chase him again.
Man, if they're getting any kind of water like we are over here, we're in San Diego, and it hasn't stopped raining all this whole since October. It just feels like it's just raining every week. It's raining today, it's raining yesterday. And I have to imagine Arizona's getting some of that too. So hope it's a real wet year and they just get some just huge antlers. We'll see.
Yeah, I think I know that they were getting some snow when Colorado wasn't. So yeah, I hope they're getting some good weather. I know a couple guys that have drawn some 23 tags, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah. And really with those things too, what really sets them off in the end is getting those summer monsoons too, right? They get all the water in the world, but if they get a couple good storms right in the end right there, and June, July, August, it'll really push them over the top and blow them up.
Yeah, I think so. I think their monsoon season really takes care of the elk and the deer down there.
Yeah, something I was really surprised with was I thought, because it was so wet up here and such a banner year last year up here in the States, that Mexico would be the same way, and it didn't transcend.
Yeah, I was disappointed myself. I thought with all the weather down there that there was just going to be 130-inch giants running everywhere, and we didn't see that as much as I thought we were. We saw some really nice deer, but I was hoping for a lot better antler growth.
It's funny because when you go to Mexico, if you have any sense about you're passing bucks that you would never pass in Arizona, right? If you have some sort of self-control, you're passing bucks that are phenomenal bucks, right? And the 100-inch, 105-inch buck, you're passing them to look for a bigger buck. But in Arizona, you'd be shooting that thing all day long and doing backflips. It's really special down there.
And the attraction to me in Mexico is, and I think you've talked about it a little bit on one of your other podcasts, is you are hunting per se public land deer, but you also get to shut the gate behind you, and you can let that deer walk. And even if he's a deer you're on the fence with, you can come back second to last day and dig him back up and go ahead and harvest him if he's the best deer you find, or if that ends up being the deer you want. Whereas when you hunt the public land stuff, at least in Colorado, if you pass on something that's legal, it's almost like somebody's already waiting in line to harvest that animal. We don't get to see, and I think the deer in Arizona is the same way. Like they don't get the chance to mature as easy. I tell all the guys that want to go down there and hunt, I said, the culture's special, but it's nice to lock the gate and not have to worry that if you see a buck and it doesn't end up, you run out of daylight or whatever, you can always come back. Like nobody's racing you to the spot or so.
Yeah. You don't got to be the first guy at the knob, get up there an hour earlier because the guy's trying to get you there.
Yeah. You can drink coffee and just get up there and enjoy your hunt. It's not super hard pressed to, like you said, to race up the knob and build up a sweat and leave at 3 a.m. So I enjoy it.
I swear, man, even the deer acted like Mexicans down there, man. It's because the culture of Mexico is very laid back, right? And the deer didn't even start moving until 9 o'clock, man. They were just like, got up at Coues like every day, like 9. Like it was just, like you said, very peaceful, right? That's one thing I enjoy about going to Mexico. I've spent a lot of time doing missions work down there, is they're very, for one, family focused. And for two, the pace is slower. Right. Things are slower and they still have freaking siestas, So it's just what I really enjoyed about Sonora is like I've hunted some really cool places but you still have jets flying over and you still have, prop planes flying over, or you still have guys on horses getting out there with guides. In Sonora, I didn't see an airplane. It was it's the Wild West. We were 4 hours south of the border and we didn't see another soul.
And you don't hear ATVs driving by unless it's somebody in your hunting group. I tell people that's half of my love with Sonora is, you get to go hunt. You get to hunt opportunities that you don't get in the United States. But like you said, it's just, especially if you're from like the Western heritage, like they're still moving cows on horses. You get to see how they do things, and a lot of things we do with equipment or have some fancy tool to do it, and they just do it the way that makes sense, that's easy, and I think that, like you said, the deer were really laid back this year. We'd get up there before daylight, just hang out, watch the sunrise, get set up, and you'd start picking deer laying down, and they'd lay down till 8:30, 9 o'clock before they ever got up. So
I'd never seen it before. I was like, they don't even start. They're just relaxing. I guess they're not getting pressured. I know like in the States, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to, that first hour and a half is golden time. And then they're going to try and get back down, get back to their bedding area and get out of sight. But down there, aside from a lot of lions and jaguars, and nothing's really getting them. There's no humans down there chasing them. There's not a lot of even people hiking around or anything. It's just you're out there.
Yeah. I hunt out of a Toyota. I don't take a side-by-side down there. And I see a lot of deer out of the pickup. Like guys will go in and I'll just take it real slow, easing up and easing down. And it's amazing how many deer that you can just see out of the pickup that don't really care that you're there. It's definitely said I tell people I'm an elk hunter, and I tell people that I'd rather hunt a Coues deer now, and they think I'm crazy, but it's pretty special.
I'll tell you what, they're a lot better on your body.
Yeah.
I feel like everything about they do live in I hunt them in Arizona. They do live, everything bites where they live, the plants. But man, I feel like when you hunt elk, even if you don't shoot one, you're just getting worked over. They live in the steepest, nastiest, deepest stuff, and Coues deer are just fun, man. They're enjoyable, and plus, it's so rewarding to actually, especially when you're working at it and you can glass for 2 hours and finally you see a buck. It's just like, there you are, gotcha. And it's like this cat and mouse game that it's really relaxing, and it's you're playing chess with these deer, right? And you're like, if you stay in the glass long, if you're eventually gonna see one stand up, and you just got to keep after them. And you finally, when you see them, you're like, gotcha, you know?
That, and I believe that it's also helped my glassing game for mule deer and elk. And obviously, spotting an elk's way easier if they're standing up, but just the patience, just gaining the more and more patience and telling yourself like, okay, my eyes burn, they're itchy, but I can do another 15 minutes, or I can do another 30 minutes, or just what you're looking for. Everything's so minute with the Coues deer that when you amplify it with a mule deer or an elk, and you're training your eyes to look for those small movements, of that small glint of an antler, like it's helped my glassing game in Colorado and Arizona tremendously.
Yeah, man. I tell people all the time, slow down, right? Like you can't go slow enough, right? And then with Coues deer, it's amplified. Like you cannot go. That's why I had this new tripod. No, this isn't, I guess I am promoting my company, but I had this new tripod coming out where you can actually pan with a knob and just creep that thing. Cause I swear to you, I've had those deer 50 yards in front of me in a bush, and I knew they were in the bush, and I waited 2 hours, and then finally blowing them out of the bush. I thought they disappeared somehow. Cause they call them the gray ghost for a reason. They disappear. They can just sit down in grass and you won't see them, and they're right in front of you. It's cool.
100%. One, I'm upset with you with that new panhead because I waited and waited and waited. I thought we were going to have it for Mexico this year. So
the first four it'll be, by the time this podcast comes out, they'll be for sale. It should be for sale. I'm thinking the end of next week. I have them in stock now. I'm trying to get them into my vendors' hands first. I sent a few out to some people, but it's the real deal. Especially if you're using large optics, the LP is a phenomenal panhead for you're running 65s, 85s, binos. That's a head I'm going to run. But man, you put a BTX on this new panhead, and it's just wow. It's the real deal.
I told the guy I hunt with in Mexico, I said, man, Drew's coming out with something special. Like when I waited and waited, and I was like, I just got to go. I ran the BC and the LP head on a mountain goat hunt, and I took my 95 with me, and it handled it.
It handled it. Yeah.
Yep. There were some cases like I had to really tighten it down, but it did phenomenal.
Yeah. It's a little engine that could. I tell people all the time, as long as you know that it wasn't created for that 95, but it'll do it. Like it'll do it. It's like you can kill an elk with a 6.5 Creedmoor, but actually I'm not going to compare a Creedmoor to my panhead. I don't want to do that to it. You can shoot an elk with a 25-06, but you'd be better off using a 300 Win Mag. And this new panhead's a 300 Win Mag. It's made for larger glass. It's made for those 95s. It's incredible. And it's like I tell people all the time, you don't have one gun. You need two panheads. You need two, like, it's just different panheads for different things, different optics for different hunts. I'm sure, like, on some of my backpack hunts this year, I'll definitely run into BC and an LP because it only weighs 32 ounces. But, like, on my Coues deer hunts, when I'm going to be close to the truck, because I'm not backpacking on those hunts, I'm going a couple miles, I'll be running the JC and the PTX. With the weights in there, I'll be carrying an 8-pound tripod. It all depends on what you're doing.
100%. Like I said, when on the goat hunt, it did awesome. Like I said, you'd have to cinch it down a little tighter, but it handled it just fine. And for the alternative to be that strong versus the weight you got to carry, no brainer for me.
And you're probably like me, you're probably running your binos more anyways, right? So you're putting the spotter on a check. Are you running the spotter exclusively, or you're running the binos mostly?
No, my 15s mostly.
15s. That thing is made for the 15s. That's my bino of choice. If I had to pick one bino the rest of my life, it would be the SLC 15s. I don't know if you're on the SLCs, but that's what I run, and I'd run them on that LP all day long. Phenomenal.
100%. And I like it because when I sit down, I only have to pull the bottom legs out, and it's almost perfect. So then, and then I have the AD, and when I sit in my stool and I pull my bottom legs out, it's perfect. So it's not a whole lot of jostling around crap,
Yeah, I tell people all the time, like what they don't understand is it's the experience you get with our tripods. Like you get behind it and it's an enjoyable glassing experience. And I say that not because I created it, but because like I glass a lot. Like if you ever go hunting with me, you'll be like, wow, that guy doesn't stop glassing. And when you're behind a crappy panhead that's falling over on you or the tripod legs are flexing, it's just everything about it. Like I can move a little bit and easily adjust the nose right at the top of the head, move it around, and I can easily keep glassing and stay in the glass. I'm not having to go and just fiddle with it all the time. And that's part of the reason why it's probably the best selling panhead and tripod in the country right now is because it's comfortable, it's ergonomic, and it just works, man. It's cool.
Yeah, I started with a slick and a Manfrotto, and it worked.
Mm-hmm.
And I started hunting in Mexico. There were some guys using some better stuff, some outdoorsmen. And as soon as I was around those, I was like, man, that setup's smoother and slicker and faster than mine. And I went over and I bought or got the outdoorsman setup. And then I went on a limb to for some of my mountain stuff. I didn't want to pack that big thing, and I tried the BC. And it took me a little bit to get used to your locks are a little backwards and stuff. But after that, it's my tripod of choice. Not it
Yeah.
is. It just
Yeah.
it's smooth, it's quiet, and like I can adjust the legs just a little bit, and I can still stay in my glass. So
Yep, exactly. That's
um,
exactly what it's made for, and it's all right. You're
yeah,
not having to reach down and get underneath it. It's just right there. Hit the nail on the head. So I think we're going off of Mexico back. I want to hear about your goat hunt, but I want to go back to Mexico. So now I don't know if I want to hear about your goat hunt or we'll go to Mexico. We'll go back to Mexico, and then maybe we'll go back to the goat later on if we get a chance in the end. One of my favorite things about Mexico as well is the experience. I talked about the stars. There's no planes. Um, you're staying in an old ranch house that's probably 100 years old. Typically, you got a chef, just some Mexican lady who doesn't speak a lick English, but she's making tortillas by hand and she's making you authentic Mexican food, not like Taco Bell, but like
yeah.
authentic Mexican food that you couldn't even get at a restaurant up here.
You couldn't pay a 5-star chef in America to make you some of the simple meals down there that are just
Exactly.
amazing. Just homemade tortillas, burritos for lunch. It's amazing. And the sunsets in Sonora, I think, are probably some of the best I've ever
Mm-hmm.
witnessed.
Yeah, tortillas with everything. By the time you're
Yeah.
done with your hunt, and you're typically down there 8 to 10 days, you're gonna eat a lot of tortillas.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
A lot of tortillas.
Yeah. You don't get on the scale when you come back from Mexico. Just go straight back to working out and then give yourself a month. So
Yeah, something to point out too. I like what you said about being able to go behind a locked gate, but you're still on public land. So, like, I booked a ranch this year. I've got a ranch. I'm going down with the owner of Olin, Nate, and father-in-law, my partners, and a couple other people from the industry. And when you book a ranch, you essentially own that ranch from September through February. So no one else is
yeah.
hunting it. It's not like when you go to a ranch in Colorado or Utah, and there's going to be hunters just cycling through that ranch, going through the gates. Like when you book a ranch in Mexico, typically that's your ranch, and no one else is going to be hunting it, disturbing those deer, chasing those deer. So we're not going to go down in September. I'm going to wait till the end of January to go down after the rut and plus you get all your hunts in or during the rut. And we will be the first ones to be putting crosshairs on those deer in at least a year, if not more. It depends on when the ranch was hunted last.
Yeah. And the nice thing is too, is if you go to, I think seeing a lot of different ranches are awesome. You get to see a lot of different cowboys and cooks and terrain. But when you go to the same ranch every year, you one, develop a relationship with that place, and two, you start seeing the same deer again. And you
Mm-hmm.
start saying, I think like your buck, they knew who that deer was. Like,
Oh, they have him since he
you
was
know,
2. We shot him at 8 years old. I mean, you have pictures of
yeah.
this thing as a little scrawny fork all the way up until, you know, we killed
And
him.
I think that, if guys went together and got a ranch and stuck with it, that they can harvest their deer just like they had a lease in Texas or back east and really do some phenomenal things with the deer and help them out and shoot some big bucks. And one thing we're doing this year is I'm going to go down in July and do a predator hunt. Go down for a week, check out some deer, set some cameras, and spend 3, 4, 5 days shooting coyotes and getting rid of some of the predators. And the Mexican ranchers love it.
They love it.
It helps their deer, it helps their cattle. And we all know that those deer down there just get pounded by predators. So hopefully in 4, 5, 6 years, you're starting to see if you can continue hunting predators for a week and doing your due diligence. Hopefully in 6 years, you get to see some rewards out of that is what I'm hoping.
Yeah. And if you're hunting a ranch that doesn't get hunted for predators, man, you're going to just knock the snot out of the dogs. You're going to have a blast. Oh. And the bobcats, it's just going to be, you're going to be putting down 8 to 10 animals a day probably, and just every stand having them come in.
What's cool about Mexico too is you can sit there during the day and shoot. Coyotes are just walking around. It's not like it's not like you got to get out there at daybreak to shoot them. I mean, you can shoot them at 2:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, they are middle of the day, a trip.
And we run some lions and some cats here in Colorado, and I can count on one hand how many I've seen not chasing them with dogs or in pursuit with hounds. Mm-hmm. And in Mexico, you can glass them up. They're just walking around everywhere. So it's pretty neat experience when you can be glassing for deer and you get the giddies because there's a lion walking by.
Yeah, I had a lion on my kids' hunt this year in a basin that I love. I always find bucks in. And I had a lion come in and I didn't have a tag and I was just kicking myself. And he came in and did all the cat stuff, laid on his back and played. And I watched him and I saw these deer going over the hill and I knew where the deer were. And he gets up and goes over the hill and all you hear is just chaos and deer screaming. And then, the lion didn't come back out and some deer came running up. But I know he got a deer down there, killed one. Those things are the apex predator, man, especially on those Coues deer because they're like a German Shepherd, 100 pounds. They're pretty big. The buck I shot was probably 120 pounds easy, way bigger than the deer in Arizona are. But still, you're talking an average Coues deer in Arizona is probably in that 100 to 110 range for a buck. It's not a big deer. So those lions just hammer.
Yeah. If they can get one claw in them, I think it's, it's not like having to pull an elk down. So,
they aren't hard to kill. That's one thing.
Yeah. I actually, when I was glassing for this buck, I glassed him up, I think the third morning, and I just saw him real quick. And I was waiting for him, maybe if he'd come back out. And here comes a bobcat with a jackrabbit walking. I'm probably 100 yards where he was standing, and I was doing the should I know what bobcat or deer? This is deer. But yeah, I'm hoping, like I said, if a guy can stay with the same ranch and do a little predator hunting in the summer, that hopefully in 4, 5, 6 years that you can help the deer population and definitely get some more age on some bucks.
Yeah, that's a good point on the bobcat thing. Just to point this out, as a general rule, I will not shoot a coyote or a bobcat if I have a tag in my pocket for something else. So I'm going after a deer. I will not shoot it, even though it's day 5, because you never know when you're going to pull that trigger and all of a sudden you're going to stand a buck up and you just blew it, right? So I just don't do it. I mean, someone told me that when I was younger, it might be a little bit different, but I just had someone tell me that one time and it's stuck with me. Just don't do it. And then once you kill it, then you can go shoot all the bobcats and coyotes you want, but just focus on the deer. I have a hard time like buying I'm going to go to Colorado this year. I'm debating on if I'm going to do, I have 7 points for mule deer and elk, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do. But if I get this mule deer tag, if I want to get a bear tag too, and I don't want to get a bear tag because I want to focus on the mule deer, because you can find yourself, you have both in your pocket, and you see a bear, now your attention has gone from the deer to focus on this bear for a couple of days, and you shoot the bear, then you're packing them out, and I like picking one.
You make a bad shot, then you waste a day tracking, and
it's just you didn't get that buck. You can go kill a black bear, but black bear be awesome to kill too, right? I don't know. It's just, and then at the same time, then you don't get the tag, and then there's a black bear standing there every day, and you're like, why didn't I buy that damn tag? So it's just, I don't know. Murphy's Law with that stuff,
100%. I try when I get a tag, like an elk tag or a deer tag, I'd like to try to take 3 predators for every animal I shoot. It's just my rule,
That's awesome.
So, yep, yep. And but yeah, if you have a black bear tag, you won't see one. If you don't have one, you'll see 10. So that's how it
Yeah,
goes.
exactly. Murphy's Law. All right. So I guess we should talk about this giant buck. I'm going to hold him up real quick. Let's see this thing. If you are listening, it has on its right side, what it's got like this, the eye guard's like curving all the way in. What, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 on one side, 7 on his right.
7, and he broke one off right here.
7, he broke one off, and the right side or the left side's got what?
Just a 3 with a kicker.
3 with a kicker, and then so if you were to call him, so you got 7 plus 4, 11. You'd be a 13-point buck if you're calling him a whitetail. He's a 13-point buck.
Yep.
And just got like crazy mass. It almost looks like a double main beam buck. It's just a freak of a buck. Almost got a crown on his G2. I don't even know if you can call it a G2. I guess it's a G2 with the stickers everywhere. It's crazy.
He went into 2 main beams, and this is a G2, G3 with a kicker, and then like a G2, G3 with a kicker. But yeah, the bad thing is I didn't know how big he was when I shot him. I knew he was a big buck, but I'd hunted him for 4 days, and I'd see him every morning and every evening, but it was like for 5 seconds at a time. I never could. Mm-hmm. I started seeing more stuff every time I'd see him, and then it was. I guess I could just tell the story.
Tell the story, because I want to hear the whole story. And one thing I like about that buck and I like about Coues deer is not necessarily always the biggest buck; it's the coolest buck. And that buck just looks cool. Like there's something about those deer that they just look cool. So yeah, tell the story.
So like I said, I told you earlier, I usually hunt with another group of guys. We didn't get hooked up this year just because of some scheduling stuff. And so I went with another group. I went with 2 guys I'd hunted with before and a guy I hunt with in Mexico every year. Went with another group of guys. We go to a new ranch. It's just the whole new thing. And everybody kind of splits up, goes their direction, and we just go up the hill. And we come up opening morning, and we see a couple good bucks that right at 100, something like that. And nothing that we wanted to check the ranch out and see what it had to offer. And we come up over the hill to get ready to glass, and I see this deer. And we get out, and my buddy's name is Todd, and I said, I put my 15s up real quick, and I said, Todd, I think you ought to get your gun out. I think we should shoot this buck real quick. And he's, are you sure? We left the ranch like an hour ago, and I was like, I'm pretty sure we should shoot this buck, but he's 1,000 yards away, and I'm just free-handing my 15s at this point. So we decide we move up to the hill, and he disappears. He's just moving. So let's get up here and get set up. We set up, and I start looking for him, and I pick up a little buck chasing a doe, and I look down the hill, and I see him, and he's standing out in the wide open, and then he bails down, and he's just cruising, coming down the hill. And I said, Todd, get your gun. And he says, I'm not shooting that deer. He had shot a really nice buck last year. So I want you to shoot this deer. And I was like, no, like, I'm on him. We're going to have to kill him. So we're arguing back and forth, and I pick him up again, and he's at 678 yards. And I pick his 3 side up, and I know he's a good deer, and he turns a little bit, and I see his kicker, and then he's in the brush again. So Todd's getting stuff set up, and I'm trying to get my gun out and keep an eye on the deer, get Todd on the deer. And you know how it is. It's just a rodeo sometimes.
Yeah.
We don't see him. So we calm down, and we go back to glassing, and I look over, and pretty soon I see a buck again, and he's coming back to where he came from, but he had just poked his head out around a mesquite tree. And I said, I've got another buck. And he turns his head, and I said, I think he's got split G2s and split G3s. Like, we should shoot this buck. So we're getting ready to set up, and he walks in, gets behind the trees again. I don't see him the rest of the day. So in all this, there's guys are figuring out the ranch and driving up, and they're like, "Oh crap, we didn't know you were here." And I'm like, "That's all right." Long story long, we go back to camp. Everybody's swapping stories, and I said, "I found a deer that I'm gonna camp on, and I'm gonna shoot. I don't know how big he is. I just barely got a glimpse of him, but he's got split G2s and G3s, and I'm gonna stay on this deer, or I'm gonna go home without him." The next morning, we go back up, and there's just woods are silent. We see two little bucks, two little forkies or 3 points, and we look over, and he's on a different. I see him, and he's on a different ridge, and I just see a deer, and it goes, and I didn't know it was him at the time, and we sit there all dang day and just zero deer, and the wind's blowing hard. It sucked, like just earning it. And right before daylight, he pops out right where that deer was to my right on this ridge. And he stands there for a second. And I'm like, "Oh, I got a buck." And I'm like, "That's him. That's him." So like we're trying to get set up and he walks left to right, and then he just goes over the backside of the ridge. He's so bummed about it. Come back the next day and start glassing that morning, and he pops up in the same spot, but he pops up for 5 seconds and dumps over the hill again, and we're like, crap. So we sit there. Oh, maybe he'll come back, maybe he'll circle around, maybe he's gonna searching for does, all the stuff. And we sit there all dang day again, nothing. And right before daylight, he comes out again, same footsteps, and dumps over the hill. So in all these little glimpses of him, I'm going, he's got a kicker on the right. And Todd's going, no, he's got a kicker on the left. And I'm like, are you sure? And I'm pretty sure. And we're going back and forth. And every night we're going back to camp, and we're telling the guys, and they're like, "Did you get him?" "No." "How big is he?" I was like, "I don't know. Well, he's a good deer, but I don't want to put." So finally I told one of the guys, I said, I think he's like a 110 to 115 inch deer. Like he's a real mature, respectable animal. So the next day we sit there, we don't see him in the morning, but in the evening he comes right back out, and I'm ready for him. Like my gun is almost pointed where he's going to stand. He comes out right before dark, and he quarters away from me really hard. It's like 535. I was real confident in the shot, and I shoot and I miss him, and I'm heartbroken. So Todd, the guy with, you missed him clean to the left. And I'm like, "Are you sure?" And I didn't want to walk over there and walk in his bedroom, and Todd's for sure 100% miss. And I'm like, all right. So I can't sleep that night. I'm just like, I finally got my opportunity, and I blew it. Like, you've practiced and you've shot and you blew it. You just blew it. Yeah. So we go back the next morning, and we sit in the same spot, and I don't even look at any of the other deer. I'm in my 15s, just laser focused right where he's at. And we sit there, and it's probably, I don't know, 9:30, 10, and I haven't seen a deer move right there. And I'm just pounding it, and I'm nothing. And I come out of my 15s, I bend down, I grab my coffee cup, I take a drink, I set my coffee cup down, I look in my 15s, and he's standing in my glass. And I'm like, what the? I'm like, "Todd, there he is." And Todd thinks I'm joking. I like get down on my gun, and I'm ready. And I don't think it's him. And I'm like, "What?" And I don't think it's him. So I don't shoot. And I'm like, so then Todd and we're best friends, but I'm like, "It's Todd. What do you mean? It's got to be him. It's standing in the same spot." And I don't know. And he starts second guessing himself. And I didn't think it was him, Shane. So we sit there, and I get frustrated. I said, "He's been walking over this hill for the last 4 days in a row." I said, "To hell with it." So I throw my backpack on, I put all my glass in there, and I said, "I'm going to walk. I'm going to go hike to him and get to him." So I walk like a mile and a half north, like a mile and a half east, get on the other side of the next ridge over, and then a mile and a half back down to where he is. And I sneak over the ridge, and I get out there, and no deer standing in the wide open. And Todd comes with me, and we start glassing, and I say, well, he's not out in the wide open. We're just going to have to sit down and start pounding some country. And sun's in our face. It's blazing hot. The wind's blowing. And I had brought some beer in my backpack. And I said, Todd, I said, you want a beer? And he says, it's hot, man. I'd take one. So I hand him a Tecate out of my backpack, and I take one. And we open our beers, and we're sitting down and we're glassing. And about 2 minutes later, I hear a deer blow like 5 yards to my right. I heard it. I knew what it was. I knew what I was hearing. But I looked at Todd and I said, is that what I think it is? And he blows again. And he blows again. And I grab my gun and I stand up. And that buck had taken off running down the ridge. And Todd goes, it's not him. It's not him. And I stand up and look. And the deer I shot, I've been hunting for 4 days, is standing like 3 yards away from me. Just standing there. Yeah. And I'm just as surprised to see him as he is me. And then it's just chaos. He runs off the hill right behind the other buck. And Todd's, that wasn't him. And I was like, yeah, but the second one was. The smaller buck, and he was still a nice buck, probably a 105, 107-inch deer. He runs down, crosses the draw, and goes right out on the wide open point and just is standing there, and he's just blowing. And I see this deer, and he runs down to my right and starts like coming back up the hill. And I get ready, and I said, man, Todd, if he crosses that wide open hill, hopefully he stops. I can get a shot at him. And nothing. So we stand there, and the smaller deer still down there blowing. And I said, maybe he cut down the draw. I said, I'm going to grab my 15s. I said, keep an eye on that deer. And I go to walk away, and I said, I'm going to shoot that deer. And my buddy's going, no. And I said, Todd, that's a nice deer. Like, I said, by this point, I'm having a pity party. I said, I missed him yesterday. I just blew him out at 3 yards. Like, he is gone. That's a nice deer. And Todd's like, you're not shooting that deer. We're arguing now. And this deer's still standing down there blowing. So I said, fine, I'm going to go down there onto the point, and I'm going to see if he crosses lower below us. I make it like 25, 30 yards from Todd. Or I told Todd, I said, keep an eye on that deer. And I make it like 25 yards down the hill from Todd, and I hear a second deer blow. And Todd yells at me. He says, Shane, here he comes. So my 15s are on my big tripod on the AD, and I'm packing them in my hand. I pretty much pitch those into the trees, sprint up the hill, and the buck I shot come walking up and turned broadside and was just facing downhill, standing there. He's 180 yards. So I pull my rifle up, and by this point, I couldn't have hit anything. And I'm shaking. I'm trying to calm myself down. And I yell at Todd. I said, give me your tripod. So he runs up the hill, or gets up the hill, brings me his BC, and I slide the legs out real quick, and the deer's still just standing there. And I'm shooting a chassis rifle. So I just slid it in the tripod and tightened it down and took a deep breath, and I shoot. And I hear it hit him, but I lose my sight picture. Mm-hmm. So I take off running down. He's going down the hill again. So I take off running. So now I got my rifle with the tripod attached to it, and I'm just clearing brush going downhill. And I get to the point, and I'm shaking, I'm nervous, and I'm like, what the? And I'm looking for him. I'm like, I'm going to see him. I'm going to see his flag somewhere. If he crosses right here, I've got to see him. And I just see something out of the corner of my eye, and I pull my rifle up and look at it, and it's him. And he had already tipped over, and I could see just a big exit wound on him. And I just hit my knees, and man, I yelled at Todd up the hill. I said, he's down. When Todd came down the hill, and I was shaking. I was nervous. I was crying. I thanked the Lord. And then I looked at Todd, and I said, I hope I shot the right deer. And Todd goes, what? And I said, it was starting to get a little racy there. But yeah, had to go and pick up my yard sale. Had lost a leg to to my bipod. I had a bullet wallet or bullet sleeve scattered. I had to go pick my 15s up, and just it was a rodeo by the end of it. But yeah, it worked out.
That is bitchin'. See, that's why I like I'm not knocking hunt films, but this story to me is what probably most kills are like.
Yeah.
At least mine, right? Like it's not like slow motion and this is all it's just like it just doesn't work that way. Most time doesn't work that way. This is how it is. I like having guys like you on here to talk about this because that's me, man. And you shoot it, and I'm just people. I know you're not supposed to hoot and holler, but I'm just like high fiving and hooting and hollering and giving, shaking my kid, like, yeah, good job, buddy. Because that's cool, man. That's just bitching. What are you?
Yep,
You shoot
yeah,
a chassis rifle. What rifle you shooting? The MDT chassis?
an XLR chassis. My buddy in Colorado is an XLR dealer, and he's also a custom gun builder. His name's Jade, and he makes some sweet rifles. Yeah, it worked out. Like I said, I slid the rifle right into the tripod, and it was probably the only thing that calmed me down enough to be confident to shoot, because I pulled up on him and was shaking. Just after everything, I had buck fever. So
That's good.
but
I hope that never goes away for you.
yeah, and after
I hope it never goes away.
Oh yeah, I'm more confident shooting animals like that, where like I lay down and I go out and shoot with Jaden and stuff, and if I have time to think about it, I'm almost
Yeah.
a worse shot than I am if I could just pull up and shoot on instinct. But yeah, it all calms down, and Todd walks up and he says, "I guess you want your victory beer finally?" Yeah, so it was a great hunt. And Todd, he looks at me and he says, "That was a whole lot better than shooting him yesterday at dark." So we walked down there, and and at this point, I still didn't know what he was. I knew he had split G2s and split G3s. I knew he had the kicker off his solid 3 side, and Todd swore up and down that he had a kicker off the other side.
Yeah, little did you know, he had both.
Yeah, he had both,
and more.
both. Yeah, and a little more, and a crazy freaking G1, and yeah. So we got to walk down there and just kind of see what he was. Finally, get to touch the deer that we've been seeing. So we just hung out with him. We just sat there for hour and a half, just hanging out and just talking and just appreciating him. And then finally, we packed him up to where we could get a truck to. Went and picked him up. Everybody sees him on the way down, and I tell Todd, I said, "Now we got to go out tonight and kill a bigger one." We come out, nothing that night. By the time we got him to the ranch and stuff, we come out the next morning, and right where this buck was standing, the first time I saw him, I start glassing, and I see a buck again, and I said, "Todd, I've got a buck. I got a big buck. Like, get your gun." And he's, and I said, "No, we need to shoot this buck. I'm getting like, we need to shoot this buck for sure."
Shane wants to kill every buck.
Oh yeah, this is a big, and I think he probably would have outscored my buck if you were worried about numbers. But come together, his main beams had touched.
Cross, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
I love that's such a cool feature on these bucks.
And that was the deer I was looking for. That's what I want, is one that crosses or touches. Yeah. And that's what I wanted, or I was looking for myself going to Mexico this year. And when I saw this one, I changed my mind. But we shot at that deer 4 times, and we couldn't hit him. An easy 600-yard shot, a far shot, but nothing that Todd's not capable of. And I kept telling him he's shooting high, and his gun ends up being, I think, like 1.5 MOA off. So, yep. So we missed another big deer, but he got a good buck. But we got another big one to go and look for in 2025.
That's awesome. It sounds like you're shooting some range, got some good rifles. What caliber, what bullets you guys shooting?
Todd is shooting a 6.5 PRC. I can't remember what builder he uses. I'm shooting a West Elk Precision in a 7 PRC.
7 PRC. I love the 7s. I shoot 280 Ackley. Very similar.
Yep.
ballistics.
I almost had Jaden build me an Ackley, and I ended up going. I'm going to go with
Yeah,
the PRC for factory loads. Was the only reason that
yeah.
I went with the 7 over the Ackley.
The only reason I went Ackley is sometimes when you're loading the Magnum, especially the short Magnums, you get a little bit more. It's a little bit harder to get them in, and I just feel like that 30-06 case, man, it just always feeds. It just that standard action, they just always feed. So that's why I went with the Ackley. I had really good luck with a 175 grain burger in that gun. What bolt are you shooting?
I'm just shooting the Hornady matches, the
ELDX,
180, the
180 matches.
ELDM. Yep,
ELDMs.
yep,
Okay, yeah.
yep.
I think I just bought the 178 ELDXs, and
Okay.
I'm going to try and load those out for it and try them. Cause I don't know that burger's my favorite hunting round. So I don't know. I'm all over the place with that gun. But this year, I don't know if you've heard or not, I'm talking about a lot. I'm getting a Woodstock 30-06. My goal is to hunt everything I kill this year with a stock 30-06. That's my plan for this year.
I finally broke. I'm a 270 guy. That
Are
was
you?
my gun. Yep, that was my gun growing up. So I went into the 7s. But I have like we killed I think 4 or 5 elk with that rifle last year with
The
the
PRC.
yep, with the ELDMs, and I was pretty happy with them. I actually
Yeah,
when I hit
they're
that.
dead right there, right? I mean, they do the burger, right? And they go in and they don't come out.
Yep, and when I hit that Coues deer, it came out, and you could slide probably a pop can in the exit hole, but it had a second exit and came out his chest too. So it
Mm-hmm.
exited through him and came out his chest. So it, he made it maybe 15 yards,
He
20
was dead on his
yards.
feet.
And
He didn't know he was dead. He was just dead.
yeah, it hammered him pretty hard. So I was real impressed with them. They did really well on some elk this year. So yeah, and I've seen some deer down there. People don't underestimate how tough a Coues deer really is. Elk are tough, but Coues deer got the will to live. They will go. So,
I'll tell you, the toughest animal I've ever hunted would have to be aoudad. And the only reason I say that is I had a buddy gut shoot. I shot one, and then he gut shot one with a 7 mag, and it blew its guts out. It was running with its guts out its side. I tracked that thing for 2 miles before it stood up. It was raining. It was like, I'm not trying to do snow up to school, up the hill in the snow, but
yeah,
that's what it was like. On my hands and knees, finding blood every 30 yards. And he finally found it. And that thing stood up and he killed it. But that thing went, I can't believe it had the will to live that much. And I guess you live in lion country over there in
I
Middle
think
East,
that's
you're just used to it. There's
yeah.
tough animals.
Just living in the desert, like I don't know if it's like you said, everything bites you, pokes you, stings you, cuts you, or the lions, or they just got the will to live and they're tough.
Yeah.
I've seen elk take a thumping and just keep going. You compare an elk and a Coues deer, their size, like I can understand how an elk would keep going, but a Coues deer, they're dog tough.
Yeah, they are. They got to be. And they're like, what I love about them too is how cagey they are. They're just very, you never seen an animal jump a string like a Coues deer. Everything's trying to kill them all the time and they're just very alert. It's really cool. But man, that was an awesome podcast, Shane. That
Yeah.
was fun. And you're going to be, I got all kinds of good clips out of that thing. You're a good storyteller. That was awesome. So you're going back again, I think you're going back to Mexico in 2025?
Yep, gonna go back to in 2025. I'll probably hunt with the same group. I'll hunt with Todd for sure, and then I'm probably going to take a couple different groups of guys myself. Got a couple ranches booked up to take some other guys down. So hopefully we can send you some more pictures of some big ones.
I hope so, man. Let's do it again. Let's get back together next February or March and hear about all these bucks you killed. Tell some stories.
Well, hopefully there's at least a couple, not all of them. But no, man, I appreciate having me on and keep killing it. Like,
Yeah, thanks, bro.
your stuff's good. We're liking it.
Thank you. It means a lot coming from guys like you. Let's do it again, bro.